Welcome back, everybody, to another great episode of Sake Drinker and Friends. Well into a year after the show, it was just about due to bring one of my best friends and colleagues and sake lover and passionate about pairings and food and wine and soon to be married, Filippo Bevilacqua.
Ciao, buongiorno.
Although Filippo and I have worked together off and on the past 15 years, and definitely just created this bond and fed of each other's passion for food and beverage, and this day sake and a lot of Italian wines. He's now back at our mother home at Don Giovanni and running the show there and enjoying it. And if you guys haven't been there for a while, you gotta experience the quality of wine and food and beverage and the excitement that Filippo and the whole team brings to the experience. But that will be for another episode, maybe for the Italian Drinker and Friends.
There you go.
And today we're here to talk about sake. And first of all, I want to ask Filippo in front of all you guys, what really drives you about sake? Because I know your energy and passion about it has always been really contagious, and it's hard to stop you from talking about sake sometimes.
It's true. It's the experience mainly. You know, I mean, working in my days in Morimoto was being with the guests at the restaurant, and they come to this amazing Japanese place that they want to have amazing Japanese food, but chances are they haven't had sake, you know, or good sake for the matter. So, you know, you go there and you sell that experience of having an amazing beverage paired with some of the most amazing sushi and amazing westernized Japanese cuisine that you could ever have. You know, so that's the thing that kind of brings me with the whole sake world, because, I mean, you're tasting, you know, sweet potato and earthiness, and you're tasting on another sake a melon and honeydew, and another sake you're tasting strawberries and raspberries, you know, so it's so
Absolutely.
unique.
The range.
Exactly, it's a huge range, and it's one of those most unique beverages that you could really sell to your guests and really have a good time with it. So
Yeah, I know Filippo's one of the people that are trying to spearhead the sake movement into other cuisines. Trying hard.
Very.
And on that note, we'll have a surprise later in the show about that, about extending to other cuisines. But if you agree, Filippo, we'll start with the Hakkaisan, which you're very well familiar with.
Toukubetsu Junmai.
Toukubetsu Junmai. And we'll talk about the style. And I would love if the audience wants to taste a sip without... Yeah, that way we can all taste it together super fast. And thank you very much for the audience for being here. It's always fun and exciting to have little people and adults and everybody enjoying the show. And we have Lindsay from the lineup, which actually her show's coming up soon. I want to forget about that in a couple days. I was lucky enough to be on her show a month or so ago, and it was so much fun. I hope it didn't bore you too much. She's amazing. And then, of course, we have Scott Barber, who just got done with a show, and it's always an exciting, informative show about wine and soms and the floor. And Shannon, who is the guest today. Chris over here. So, anyway, it's too early. And Rocco and Sophia as well, who are being pretty good. So we'll taste the Hakkaisan, and let me pour you guys a quick sip. Here, I'll pour them here. And Filippo, what do you remember about Hakkaisan?
Hakkaisan, just super clean and refreshing. Kind of has a little sweetness, almost confectionery sugar on there, and just great and light. It's like drinking a glass of water with... It's okay. It's like drinking a glass of water with, you know, a nice refreshing glacier toast to it.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. So Hakkaisan all the way from north, snow melt, very clean.
It's Niigata?
Niigata.
Yeah.
Yes. So pretty, almost a little fennel in the nose, right? Fennel, clean finish, high acid.
Yeah, a little fennel bulb and high acid. Definitely that confectionery sugar just kind of hits the back of the palate, and or on the mid palate rather, but it's just a great all around, you know, for me it's almost an entry level sake. You know, it's what people who haven't had, you know, they've had their warm sake or their nigori or anything like that, and they want to try a cold sake. You know, this is the perfect one to kind of get them started with. You know, it's clean,
if I
it's
was
easy,
coming into your restaurant, what would you recommend to eat with this?
in my restaurant, with that one, you could do grilled octopus. You know, you could do bruschetta. You could do, You could do spaghetti vongole. You could do in a white sauce. You could do so many things with it. You know, the sake, the cool thing about sake, it's such a unique beverage that you could pair with almost anything. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago we did the sake pairing with the westernized food.
Absolutely.
And we had a salmon pastrami Reuben sandwich with sake. And it was one of the most mind-blowing experiences with the sake world, because we're having sake very similar to this one paired with someone with Thousand Mile dressing and pastrami and sauerkraut and salmon. So
it extends.
It definitely does. Correct.
Yeah, the acidity I think in the dishes brings a lot into sake, since sake generally doesn't have that spiked acidity as like champagne or a white wine would do.
Right.
So it's pretty exciting, and I remember you being very well versed in this sake and how cleansing and clean it is, and it's a great start to the experience. But I couldn't do a tasting, a flight, a show without bringing some of your favorites.
Oh, absolutely.
And hence that, we're gonna try next. I don't know, your choice, Filippo.
Let's do fukuchitose.
Fukuchitose it is.
Yes.
So fukuchitose, the happy owl from Fukui.
Fukui, absolutely.
And Filippo has come up with the best descriptors for this sake. And if you wanna start listing them up, I have a special pairing for it, which you actually
wow, that's
you
thanks
actually
for putting me on the
crafted
spot, but,
for everybody. And we have a little surprise for Filippo here.
Jesus. ¿Qué cosa es?
This is something you came up with. You came up with the pairing
Oh my goodness.
of In and Out
Yep.
and fukuchitose. So make sure everybody in the audience tries a little bit.
I think so. It has to be a
Absolutely.
double with grilled
As you
onions.
should.
Animal style. Absolutely. This
My mom
works
said if you
perfectly
can't
with-
bring something for everybody, you don't bring anything. So we just made sure that everybody gets to try
Very
the pairing.
true. Very
Right?
true. Cheers to you, Anna.
Cheers, And let's see what it goods. So this is something that I personally, I love sake and I love pairings, and I always get to a certain side. But this is something Filippo one day showed up and started telling us about pairing with In and Out.
So I think where this came from was one night. It was a very successful night at Morimoto, and chef at the time, he says, "You know what? It was such a successful night, Filippo. Why don't you go to In and Out and get as many burgers as you can for the whole staff of the restaurant?" So we did. You know, we sent one of our main food runners over there. 2.5 hours later, she comes back with In and Out.
With 120 of them or
About 120. It took us 2.5 hours, but you know, we got it. And we're sitting back in the office, and Eduardo, just out of nowhere, thank you. I had lunch already, but you can never say no to
It's
In-N-Out.
educational.
But Eduardo brings out a bottle of fukuchitose, just for something for us to wash it down. And I think that pairing, I fell in love with the pairing, because it's, you have that dressing, you have the grilled onions, you have the tomato, everything that's in this burger, and the bun that really makes it too. But with this sake, because the earthiness of the sake pairs so well with with the beef and with everything that's in here. So I think this was. He says it was my pairing, but actually in disguise it was his pairing.
No, I would have never thought about it until you had mentioned it before, I think. Something like that happened, but it was magical.
Absolutely.
And by the way, In and Out did not sponsor this show by any means. They could later on, but
Absolutely.
please try it, Filippo.
Okay. Thank you.
We're all waiting to see what you think, if you're still on it.
Still tastes the same.
Feel sorry for everybody in Europe or in the East Coast that are not
can't
available.
get In and Out, absolutely.
You cannot get In and Out. We will
And it's
ship
still,
you
I mean,
some.
it just really cleans your palate and really pairs well. I know it's like a novelty to have burger and sake, and everybody in the world out there is saying, burger with sake, what is that? That's not supposed to happen. But this, I mean, try it for yourself. It definitely works very well.
Yeah, no, by all means. And it's one of the things that you can extend to a lot of beverages. There's obviously things you wouldn't do, please take them all, that you wouldn't do with certain beverages,
Right.
but I think burgers and sake, why not? That could be a great concept.
You know, as an example too, a few years ago, I had a nice bottle of sake, which was the Onekoroshi, the Wakatake, Junmai Ginjo. I'm at home, it's my day off, and on my day off I like to cook, and I cook whatever my fiance, my future wife, actually wants me to cook. You know, this is a good fiance should apparently, but I just lost my man card on that. But she says, Filippo, I want pesto. And I go to the store, I get the basil, I get the pine nuts, I get the pecorino romano cheese, I get everything involved. I'm sitting there with the mortar and pestle, and I'm making my pesto the traditional way. And in the meantime, I have this bottle of wakatake Junmai ginjo, and I eat a bit of the cheese, because you have to eat while you're cooking and drink while you're cooking, right? Eat a bit of the cheese with the sake, and it was one of the most amazing things I've ever had. It was like pecorino romano cheese, a cheese from Lazio. Sheep's milk cheese with this sake was amazing. Who would have thought that these two cultures could blend? Then, when the pesto was done, I tasted the pesto with the sake, and it just blew my mind. I thought for me it was the holy grail of food and wine pairing, or food and sake pairing, excuse me. And just recently, our chef Paolo Labua from Genova, where pesto is born,
and world awarded.
World awarded. Our chef is famous, especially, without his work from Farina in San Francisco. But he did a pesto that won in 2008 the world's best pesto award.
That's a big thing.
Which is a big thing because everybody makes pesto, but it's just all about the technique, and it's nothing extravagant, but it's just perfectly balanced in harmony with all the ingredients.
I'm gonna try while you talk.
Please. And I went to a place in San Francisco and got a nice bottle of the wakatake. First thing I did, I bring it right to him. Chef, please taste this. We cut some pecorino romano cheese and we got some of his pesto. And we're eating it with slices of the pecorino romano cheese and the pesto and taking sips of the sake. And chef, who's very Italian, who never had sake a day in his life, the look on his face was pure excitement because his eyes just lit up. And that what for me was, I had a believer right there.
Absolutely.
For that sake is not just a beverage just for Japanese food. You compare it with anything, especially something with pesto that's very few ingredients but just so delicious. So, right
just
there,
hits the right notes.
Absolutely. So,
wow, pretty cool. What other things? Because I remember you cooking a lot of things, and forgive me, I tried to get some of your mom's pasta. I tried calling your mom yesterday, but she was busy. And
very busy woman she is.
Filippo's mom makes the best food in the world, and that's why Filippo's a great cook and passionate about it.
Sure.
And
gotta go to the gym often, but
eventually.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring some pasta, but I thought In and Out would be complementing some of the fun elements to it.
It does, absolutely.
You do a great pasta with sake too, which is the one you do at home with the not the amatriciana. But what's the other one you do, the cacio e pepe?
Oh, cacio e pepe. Yes. Cacio e pepe is very good, and actually with this would go really well. And you could do actually any one of these sakes, maybe even the tokubetsu Hakkaisan, because it's a dish. It's very simple. Cacio e pepe means cheese and pepper. It's a traditional dish in Rome that you have, late at night. You have at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, because it's simple. All it is cacio, which is Roman slang or Romanaccio for pecorino romano. Black pepper and the pasta water. That's it. No butter, nothing, anything like that. You grate your cheese. You put your pepper on there. You mix it all together, and that's all it is.
So what do you do? You boil the pasta first, and then you toss it with everything else?
Is this a cooking show now, or is it?
Yeah, now you are teaching us how to cook.
Well, I start with a wedge of pecorino romano. I grate it, about at least half of it done, and I boil the pasta, strain the pasta, save the pasta water. If it's then you mix everything together. If it's too dry, you add a little bit more pasta water with a ladle. If it's too wet, you add a little bit more pecorino romano. Then at the end, you have to find the balance in between where it's not too wet, not too dry, and it becomes almost like a paste. Almost. Maybe not like a paste, but almost like a sauce, if that makes sense. Then you crack as much black pepper as you can until it's just black as night, and you eat it. And with the tokubetsu Junmai, I think it would be really well because that's the acid will cut right through that cheese and that pepper and the starch of the pasta. So
wow, that would be pretty exciting.
Yeah,
maybe after the wedding.
Yeah, well, we'll probably make it that night at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, Filippo is getting married this weekend, and we're all very excited about it.
Can't wait.
And he found the love of his life. They make the best couple in the world. Pretty excited for them. And now we're gonna try another one of your favorites.
My absolute favorite.
And I'm sure you can rap about it way better than I can.
This is Stewart's.
This is Stewart's, yes.
Absolutely. This sake, Gunma Izumi from Gunma Prefecture, which is kind of right in the middle of the main island of Japan. And it's a very traditional brewery, very old school. The Toji, which is the
Brewmaster.
Excuse me. It's been a couple years. Is a brewmaster, and he only has electricity for one light bulb, and also just running water. That's it. So they brew in the wintertime, and they keep the lights on just for this one light bulb, pretty much. But going back to the traditionalness of it is very earthy. It's got that sweet potato and carrot thing going on, but then that's on the nose. When you taste it, it almost turns into peach and kind of lilac, passion fruit nose on it. And for a sake, this is one of the most unique I've ever had. You know, it just has both harmony of the earth and the fruit. That most sakes are either earthy and gamey, or they're fruity. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of hard to find a balance in between. This sake really does a good job with both. Find the harmony in between the earthy and the fruit.
It's outstanding to have that much richness,
right,
and just such like a bowl in a china shop, right?
Exactly.
And then it just ends very clean.
Yep.
To me, in a lot of ways, it's almost like a California Chardonnay, where it has like that big rich profile from the oak and the malolactic fermentation, everything, and just that rich. And I thought this is also one of your brainchilds with cherry tomatoes.
Cherry tomatoes. Now this one, yesterday I was at home and I had this exact basket of cherry tomatoes, and all I did was put in the frying pan some olive oil, little slivers of garlic, and I put those cherry tomatoes in there and then crush them with a fork. That's all you do. Nice. Just crush them so that way you get the skin and the juice from the tomato, and you cook your spaghetti and you toss it all together, and you know, it's making kind of like a vine-ripened tomato sauce.
But on the spot.
But on the spot, and it takes a half hour to make this. And with this sake, I think
absolutely
it goes really well. Yeah.
All day. Very exciting.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, you guys have any questions for the chef and pairing master here? To the microphone. Anybody?
Shannon knows a lot about sake. To the microphone.
Yeah? You good?
I would say
okay. Yes, please.
All right.
So you talk about these sakes with the descriptors. Is it consistent from year to year, or is there variation between the batches?
It's a good question. I mean, sake. Do you want to take it? Go ahead.
Well, if I can contribute to the answer, the rice is very consistent year after year, and they don't actually use always the rice from the same year.
Right.
Sometimes it's stored away, and then they use it as needed, almost like hops for beer per se. And so you don't have that vintage variation. And the toji, the brewmaster's job, is to make sure everything's consistent and always going.
Very true.
Yeah.
I mean, with sake in general, typically, I mean, obviously everybody knows the four fundamentals of sake. The four things you need, you know, is the rice, the water, the yeast, and the koji, which is the malt. You know, but some breweries, doesn't matter where they are, sometimes they import their rice from a different prefecture. Even if the brewery is located in Niigata, you know, they could get the rice, the Yamada Nishiki or the Goyaku Mangoku, whatever rice that they want to use, from all the way down south, you know, or from wherever they want. And the rice kind of really has to do with the flavor profile. You know, the rice in the Yamada Nishiki in typically 90% of sakes tend to be, for me, almost Cabernet-like. You know, they're kind of bigger, fuller bodied, you know, and it depends on the temperature, you know, because the more northern prefectures, you're getting the water source, which plays an important part on the flavor profile. You're getting more of that, you know, the mountainous ranges, so the melting ice caps, the snow caps from the mountains that filter down the mountain over the years, you know, and go right directly to the wells behind the brewery, typically. The further south you go, it's more of a harder sake, or harder water, because they get water from the ground. Mm-hmm. So if you're getting water from the ground, it's going to be more of a fuller body, more of a kind of bigger, earthy sake. When you go up north, like the Hakkaisan, you know, it's that melting snow cap, so it's more of a lighter style of a sake, too. So that has influence. The rice, I know one that we had at Morimoto had a pine needle kind of color.
Oh yeah, Matsuno Kotobuki.
Matsuno Kotobuki, exactly, another one of Stewart's.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
That Matsuno Kotobuki the rice, the Yamada Nishiki from there came from a forest, the Yoshino forest, I believe, which is right where the best cedar and pine trees in the world are located. So you get a little bit of that terroir. You get a little bit of that cedar and that pine tree kind of nose on that sake too. So it's just all unique on the situation, on where the rice is grown, what water you're using, what kind of yeast, which is aroma, you know, and the koji especially, which is another kind of aroma thing too.
Yeah.
So
The yeast, the koji. Yeah, but to your answer to round the back, Scott, as far as variation, there shouldn't be much. The only variation you would see is if the sake wasn't treated correctly and it got heated, or it just sat too long, or it's too old, or whatever, any aspect aside from from production.
Very true.
Other than that, yeah, they really strive not to have a difference year to year.
yeah,
If you find something like you like it,
you can stick with it. Yeah,
Absolutely. You bet this it's always going to be the same.
correct. It's like beer. It's pretty much the same as beer. Year after year, it's going to be, you know, it's going to taste the exact same. So. Yeah.
Shannon. Yeah.
My question has to do with Junmai versus Honjozo, and what you think that additional alcohol plays as far as a role of pairing, and how you would pair that differently compared to a Junmai.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Honjozo, in my opinion, I mean, gives more aromatics. That distilled alcohol, when you put that in the sake, you're getting more aromatics from it. So it's bringing out more of that bouquet. Versus a regular Junmai, it's going to be a little bit more just cleaner, not as aromatic. You're going to get more on the flavor profile. You know, so that's, I mean, to answer your question, yes. I mean, the Honjozo is just aromatic. That's the biggest thing for me, is what Honjozo sakes is the aromatics. So.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like Junmai tends to have a little more body and more richness, where Honjozo has a leaner, even a little slightly more acid and delicate style, but definitely the nose,
Right.
the yeast, and once you add the brewer's alcohol, and the alcohol at the end is not gonna affect much because it's watered down. So the alcohol per volume is gonna be pretty much the same. Yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, but pretty exciting. I mean, and it all depends. If you ask most people that have lived in Japan and lived and breathed sake, their preference is always Junmai and Honjozo. So it's pretty impressive.
It's very true. I don't know, for me, I love, when I'm drinking a sake, I don't go Daiginjo, I don't go Junmai, I go Ginjo. I love Ginjos because they have, I mean, a certain character, and for me, that character, not in every single Ginjo that I've had, but it's cherry cola, almost, or like, it's a Pinot Noir of sake, in my opinion. You know, you get any Ginjo, you're getting kind of a lighter, aromatic kind of style that has that fruit forward, and that's what I really like in my sakes. I mean, I typically like to drink earthy, just big, full-bodied sakes, but at the end of the day, I just want something light and clean and easy, like a Ginjo that has that kind of cherry cola, like the Shotendoji, which you can't find anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately. We're
Unfortunately.
working on it to get it back. But as to quick wrap it up for everybody that's turned on to see it today and get inspired by the sake world, in your experience, if somebody's watching us right now in Finland or in Wisconsin or whatever they're watching us from,
Okay.
if they are, what would be the entryway for them to relate? And if they see something at the store or at the restaurant, what would you recommend them to try, as of your palate?
I mean, that's a very, very good question, but it's a very general question.
Absolutely.
That it's hard to answer, but you know, when you come to a sake, you know, if you go to your store, typically sake is the packaging. You know, you see. I don't
Like
know
a
where I'm gonna go with
warrior,
this. Yeah.
things like that. Yeah.
You know, you see some sakes that have, you know, great packaging. I mean, all sakes have good packaging, but something that's very colorful and out there. For me, 99% of the time when I choose a sake, I look at the package. Honestly, I mean, despite wine's a completely different story. But in the sake world, I'll go to a sake store or a sake shop, or I'll look at a sake catalog, and I'll look at the bottle, and if I kind of like the bottle, I'll say, I want to try it. Let me give it a shot. And you just kind of go from there. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you go on to the next one. You know, and that for me is how I choose my sakes, honestly. I mean, I've been to some sake shows and sake seminars and tasted many of different sakes, you know, but it all comes down for me is from just what I like to drink, you know, I don't know a sake off the top of my head that I could say, I want to drink that one every single time. I look for different sakes all the
Diversity,
time.
and it depends what you're eating and the
Exactly.
occasion.
Exactly.
If you're celebrating your 20th wedding anniversary, what sake would you choose? I'm putting you on the spot here, but I know you know your sake, and there's got to be one or two. I'm just curious, what do you consider to be?
Ginga Shizuku, Junmai Daiginjo, or Shotendoji, but I can't find that one as much, so it's kind of hard.
We'll probably have to go to Japan and find it for you.
Yes,
and bring
the
it back.
Ginga Shizuku is done in a special drip method, which is basically when they're done making the sake, they put it in these basic cotton bags and let them hang up on the ceiling or in the top of the tank, and it's all gravity fed, where it just drips, you know, and that is basically like the free running juice in a wine. You know, it's the best. And that one, the Ginga Shizuku, for me is the champagne and the Shambal Musini and the you know, the screaming eagle of the sake world, because it's just it's the cream of the crop. You know, it's the best part of the sake that you could get. You know, and I mean, I had it one day with oysters. You know, I mean, instead of having a Chablis or, you know, champagne or whatever it is, I had it with the Ginga Shizuku, and it knocked my socks off. You know, it's one of those beverages. The Shotendoji, like we talked about, is that cherry cola, that Pinot Noir kind of quality that you get. You know, a little eucalyptus and everything. So, like I said, packaging is another thing. You know, the Shotendoji has this really cool, sexy, almost phallic in a way, the label, you know, but it's really cool packaging. It looks like a samurai, you know. Then you go to Ginga Shizuku, where it looks very elegant and very angelic and very, you know, one of those kind of things. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
we-
thank you. I mean, I hope everybody got kind of an insight on Filippo's brain, how it works, and he's gotten so passionate about sake and so contagious more than anything.
just don't let Gio find out that I put one on the list.
Yes.
Just kidding, Gio. No.
It's verbal, definitely. And well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. I do want to say, if anybody's in New York or going to New York in November, we'll be opening Momo-san Ramen and Sake, a new concept for a chef, and we'll be doing about 25 sakes, some chochus. We'll be having some fun with that. And thank you to Didier and Susan for having us. And as you noticed, today we're not at Morimoto at the Momo-san bar. We're actually going back to the mothership at the studios, which it's amazing and remarkable how it's come together along this time. And thank you very much, all of you guys. Lindsay and Scott and Filippo.
Bravo.
Thank you very much.
you.
Cheers, Filippo.
Salute.
For you.